Good morning. This week's devotion is What Have You Got? The gospel lesson for this week are the stories that were left out of last week's Mark's passage, except for some reason this week we get them from John. We get the feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus walking on water. I don't know why they switched from Mark to John, but I'm kind of glad they did. The John story has the addition of a little boy. In the Mark story, they don't tell where the disciples got the bread and the fish for Jesus to multiply. In John, we find out. Listen to John 6, 1 through 14. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. And when he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told the disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of 5 barley loaves, left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who has come into the world." I love the child in this story. He had brought a sack lunch with him, and when he discovered that people were hungry, he offered what he had. Even Andrew, the disciple who brought the boy to Jesus, thought that this is never going to be enough. But the boy freely offered what he had, and Jesus did miracles with it. There are so many stories about the generosity of children. There are stories of kids who asked their mom to pack 2 lunches because they knew of a friend at school who was hungry. Even the media knows how generous children are. Remember the really old Coke commercial from the 70s where a child offers a limping Mean Joe Green his Coke after the game? Children see a need and immediately they want to help. They don't have the cynicism of an adult yet. They don't immediately think, well, what little I offer will never make any difference. Maybe that's one reason that Jesus tells us we should be more like children. Yes, the problems of hunger and poverty in the world are huge. There's no way as individuals, or even as an individual church, we could make a difference. It would just be a drop in the bucket, and it can be discouraging. Sometimes it can even convince someone it's not worth trying. Maybe we can't solve all the world's problems, but we can do something. What do you have? The little boy had a sack lunch and he was willing to share it. The Presbyterian Church started a 2 cents a meal program back in the 1970s. Now they call it Cents Ability. I think so that you don't have to limit your donation to 2 cents. Now that may not seem like much, but over the years they have given thousands and thousands of dollars to hunger relief. Our church collects water bottles and small food items to make blessing bags for the homeless. Now these packets of cheese and crackers or fruit cups may not seem like much, but they can be life-changing to someone who is homeless and hungry. For the next few weeks, our church will be collecting school supplies. Now it may not seem like much to donate a box of crayons or a bottle of glue, but for a child who needs them, it makes a world of difference in their education. We need to stop being so cynical. We need to cultivate the generosity of a child. What do you have? Are you willing to share it? Yes, it may be just a drop in the bucket, but when you add it with all the other drops, it adds up. When you joyfully give what you have to Jesus, he can bless it and make that bucket overflow. Never let the enormity of the need in this world discourage you from doing what little you can. Jesus blessed the boy's lunch cheerfully given, and it turned into abundance. Just wait and see what Jesus can do with us. Have a blessed week.